Sri Lanka is struggling. It may not have enough money to cover its payments. In the next 12 months, Sri Lanka must pay back at least $2.5 billion to its creditors. The first payment is due this month. Sri Lanka must repay $1 billion to investors. The payment is due on the 27th of July. Ahead of the due date, Colombo is trying to control the money that leaves the country. Last week, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa issued an order. It placed limits on how much foreign currency can leave Sri Lanka. Overseas investments by local firms have been suspended for 6 months. Already, Sri Lanka has banned imports of luxury goods and cars. Reports say Colombo now wants a ban on the import of mobile phones, computers and electronic consumer goods. Sri Lanka is short on foreign currency reserves. Reports say the country's foreign reserves stand at around $4 billion right now, and that's barely enough to cover 3 months of imports. Sri Lanka has been borrowing more to maintain its reserve. In March, Colombo secured a $1.5 billion currency swap from Beijing. It has a similar arrangement with India for $400 million. What's a currency swap? It is effectively a loan that Sri Lanka can repay in its own currency. So what happens is that Sri Lanka will get the funds in American dollars and it will repay the debt in Sri Lankan rupees. That's a currency swap. Colombo has sought help from Dhaka too. Bangladesh has extended a $200 million loan to Sri Lanka, but borrowing has its limits. There is intense speculation that Sri Lanka may now need help from the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF, the global lender of last resort. Last year, Sri Lanka had access to $1.5 billion of fund facility from the IMF. But it was ended prematurely. That's because Colombo decided to take help from its allies. And even with the IMF's help, Sri Lanka might need more support from neighbors like India. Reports claim that Sri Lanka is quote-unquote banking on a $1 billion currency swap from India. This will be in addition to the $400 million loan from the Reserve Bank of India. Sri Lanka will use this funding for its dwindling reserves. Reports say India is yet to take a decision, though, on this request. Should India help Sri Lanka? Colombo's total foreign debt stood at around $32 billion in March this year. Global ratings agencies have dramatically downgraded Sri Lanka. Ratings agency Fitch has raised doubts over Colombo's ability to repay due to its low foreign exchange reserves and rising government debt. The question here is, would India like to extend another loan to a country that might default when the time comes to repay? Chinese debt has already handicapped Colombo. Sri Lanka owes more than $5 billion to China from past loans. It is now stuck in a debt spiral. It is borrowing more money to pay back existing loans. In the next 6 months, Sri Lanka must settle payments worth more than $1 billion. This money is owed to different creditors. India's decision could very well decide how easy or difficult it will be for Sri Lanka to meet these obligations. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.